the need to speculate. Oh, yeah.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan?
Here.
Councilmember Medina?
Here.
Councilmember Watson?
Here.
Councilmember Briggs?
Yes.
We have a four.
That motion please move the agenda. Move by Watson, discussion. Taylor? Opposed? Agenda is approved. There, we have, of course, the minutes of January 14, 2025, and by Watson, Briggs, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? The minutes are approved. Unfinished business. Closed door vote. Next board.
Thank you, Mayor. So at our last meeting, we spoke about clarifying meeting rule 12 that talks about laying on the table, postponing definitely, and then we also talked about adding something about motions to postpone indefinitely. I have taken an attempt to capture our conversation at the last meeting. I think we wanted to clarify that motions to lay on the table are not debatable and they are intended for when situations of urgency arise in that meeting. It's not to substitute for postponing indefinitely. So now we have sub-meeting rule 12B to talk about postponing indefinitely. And we had also discussed that the item should be able to come back within 6 months. So this does allow for a council member that voted for the postponement to bring it back. And we had talked about a reintroduction. So if it was a staff initiated item and it's being brought back, it will automatically get a staff introduction. I think those are the 3 key points that we had talked about in the last meeting, and I've tried to capture them. But I'm more than willing to get your thoughts, ideas, feedback. And then there are some further edits to Council Administrative Rule 3, given that we have a slight increase in budget for council expenses. And we had talked actually in 2024 about clarifying something about expenses and reimbursement. So there are some changes to those. It just clarifies that council is self-policing under these rules, but that request for reimbursement will be submitted to the assistant in the mayor's office, although the mayor is not responsible for approving them. That's just the administrative process. And it also clarifies that they could be used for, funds can be used for travel nationally or internationally as long as it is a justified expense and connected to city business. And then it clarifies that if expenses are incurred for events or services or materials that will happen after a council member's current term, then they must wait to ensure they're elected into the next term before they can submit for reimbursement. So I've attempted to clarify those things, which are I think the key points that we have talked about in the meeting. But again, more than willing to take your feedback because this is more of an art than a science. Yeah.
I have a question about the postpone indefinitely. Is the intent here that the council member reintroducing the postponed item, that the council would still have to vote to bring it back, or that they can just add the item back to the agenda?
No, they can just put it back on the agenda and then it gets voted on. So the agenda item would get voted on. I see what you're saying.
So it's not a vote on bringing it back from the table, for example. I know we're not tabling, but you don't have to vote to reconsider postponement.
I see what you're saying, and I think I need to clarify that with catch. So I will clarify that. So it'll be a vote first on
Postpone.
bring
to
back.
add it to the agenda.
To add it to the agenda, and then a vote if that gets on the issue. I will clarify that.
Just one point on that, or to make sure I'm understanding. Would that go on? Should a council member who voted for the postponement want to put it back on the agenda? Would it make sense for that to go on the agenda in the draft agenda items portion, as if it had come on as perhaps like a later submission or something, just to draw attention to it? Or is that with imagine
that could be an alternative, right? Yeah. Like rather than voting to reconsider postponement, you would have to vote to add it to the agenda. So it could go on as a proposed item.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to write it both ways and see which one turns out. to be
Okay.
nice. Is that okay?
Thank you, yes.
So would that mean you have to decide about the deadline to make the agenda?
No, that just means that they can place, that they can say, that the agenda item, if we go that route, the agenda item will be motion to reconsider postponed item, whatever that item is. That would be the agenda
Right.
item, right? And
Or
Or in the
alternatively,
aspect.
it would
Those are
have to
the-
be proactively added to the agenda.
Yeah, I was thinking just because we already have that section of the agenda.
Yeah.
I wonder whether this could there be instead, or perhaps an addition, unless otherwise provided in the motion itself. So for example, if, you have then, under the scenario as offered, one could have bad faith yeses on postponement for the purpose of bringing back at every single meeting until it's decided. If the amendment, if the motion postponed itself contains the conditions under which it comes back, then council has expressed itself and there it is done, rather than having this as the necessary means for coming back. For example, the very thing we're going to be talking about now, there's a condition precedent, there's a body set to evaluate if the condition precedent has occurred, it comes back as a consequence.
Yeah, and that can be easily achieved by the word you just said, unless otherwise provided in the motion. Okay.
That's why I expressed concern about just letting anybody add it back to
Yeah.
the agenda. But the scenario you're laying out actually is, I think, fairly common. Like, I think, like, you'll see it, like, in the Senate, like, Schumer will vote yes on something that he doesn't want to pass because he has to procedurally, yeah.
But it's a measure of jackass.
Yeah.
That, if we could avoid.
But just to be clear though, if it is a thing that, if it's based on a specific event occurring like this one, I mean, that was still postponing definitely, right? If it was postponing until consideration by some committee or that would fall within postponing definitely, like,
Oh, yes.
yeah, so,
Yeah, so this is indefinitely
yeah,
that we're talking about.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah,
But I think what you said,
but it's still, right,
it still holds, because you
Yeah.
can have a motion to postpone indefinitely, and then somebody could say, I move to postpone this item indefinitely, and it may not be brought back for reconsideration unless 1, 2, 3. I mean, that's possible.
The administration, like, rather than have the condition, right, like, the administration committee will decide. In fact,
Yeah. Well, and
budget committee will decide.
to Chris's point, I think that falls under postpone definitely. That's item 3. The specific event has occurred.
unless, yeah, right, so unless you're saying you want to add into the
That's just
postpone
three.
indefinitely, that would just kick it back to admin automatically, sort of, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Fair, I see your point. Okay, that makes sense to me, because this is then replicating, this is meaning to sort of replicate, this is tabling to another meeting, is really what it is.
But making it debatable.
Fine.
Okay.
So, thank you, everybody.
Do we want to add in, though, similar to the reconsideration, that it can only be postponed indefinitely once or something? Like, because, like, wouldn't that also stop?
Or it can only be reconsidered once?
Right, yeah, right, because it seems like it would kind of follow from the Rule 13 as well. Like, or like it would be, you want a similar rule there maybe, or I don't know.
I will make the argument on behalf of the jackassery, is that the word? That there is still some, in my view, the value in protecting the right of the minority to continue bringing back a point, even if they don't have the majority. But I will make that.
Well, they'd also have to win a postponement.
They would have to win a vote, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Um,
Right. Have you?
I guess then you can just table something, but, or well, that's, no. You just have to kill it.
Yeah.
You can table to a time, then you motion, then you postpone it to a time, then you postpone it to a time.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are largely debating about something that's not gonna be used often, but, because the reality is, if it doesn't have support, in many cases, if this isn't, we're postponing because there might be an improvement, then we would just vote it down. We wouldn't be postponing it, right? We would just defeat it.
Yeah, or the postponement motion might fail.
Right,
Right, and then we just vote it down,
right.
whatever side.
Yep.
Is the majority, yeah.
There was one question, Attorney Carr, in terms of like the motion away on table. I'm having a little, if you could just maybe give me an example of something where that would happen. Like, to me, it seems like it would almost require like an external event that day or something. So it's a pretty,
Pretty rare.
yeah.
I could see it being used in a circumstance when, like, all of a sudden a point is raised and we might need to give Milton time to check with staff.
Yeah.
But then we keep moving on with the agenda.
Just wanted to clarify.
Or if you have an issue on the table and something externally happens that needs you to react completely differently.
Right.
Anything else on 12 and 12B?
I certainly don't mean to put you on the spot. You have it in your emails if you want to take a look at it and get back to me.
I have a question about rural free reimbursement. So with chapter 5 of the Guide to City Finance and other relevant policies, are there policies there around like what are appropriate, expenses to be spending on hotels and meals and all of that kind of stuff? So the expectation would be that council members would abide by the same policies as staff would.
Yes, and there is an APP, and Sarah, reminding how often it gets distributed to council?
How often? Just every time it's updated.
Okay. All right.
But yes, but we did share it here previously, but I can also distribute it again if you want to look at it. I have a copy. I mean, I don't need it.
There's a whole APP on, mileage and,
So everything, it's carrying to that, great. And then the other piece that, because they're, and I understand the inherited staff not be sort of deciding yes or no on this, but, and the fact that this would, someone's very sitting in this office, but I don't love the fact that there's it's never, given the fact that we have a fairly high budget, right, and high expenditure, I think, comparatively, like, that this doesn't ever appear in any public setting. Like, where is the transparency around this ever?
Oh, it does say that the CFO will prepare a monthly report.
Okay, and I missed that.
It's in point.
Perfect, I see it. Great, I'm completely satisfied then.
And I can make that clearer, but what I was envisioning.
It's fine, it's in red.
Okay, so tell me, you will all get a monthly report on what each other is expecting.
Yes. Great. Yeah. I'm completely satisfied. Right now, it's just an Excel spreadsheet that we send in the mail, everybody's name, no expenses incurred.
I assume that will change. But please get back to me, and I guess I will, because I will need this body to move to bring this to all council, so I guess we'll do that at the next March meeting then.
And just one note on that, I think when it comes to council attaching that,
APP,
Yeah.
that was
so
actually.
for the good of the public and everything, just to know that that's there, and that's very forward facing.
What is the task Again, 5,000 for council members. Yeah. Okay.
What else would be in the interest of your?
C9 postponed to January 6, 2025 council meeting. As folks can recollect, we have a phase 2 study for council. We postponed it pending H2P2 engagement. H2P2 today issued a press release indicating the support for the resolution. That was the condition precedent described in the motion to postpone to the group's ratification. I guess we would ask this group's ratification. HPP has expressed support and suitable for bringing back to council at our next meeting. Just want to read this is the motion.
I will indeed read the motion. Motion to bring back to council's consideration and to place on the agenda for the meeting on February 18th, 2025, item CA9 from council's January 6th, 2025 meeting titled Resolution to Approve a Professional Services Agreement with New Gen Strategies and Solutions LLC to complete an electric grid asset valuation and municipalization study.
So moved.
Higher, bring the discussion on it.
No, what I said earlier, which is I'm happy to vote in favor for this to go back to council for consideration, but I will not support it when it's there.
Understood. Any other discussion on this? Just for council's and understanding, there will be an accompanying resolution following the phase 2 study, which will describe and direct and level set for public some of the work that the city will do as the phase, some of the legal work that the city will do, as preparatory work that the city will do as the phase 2 study is being. That will include our own legal analysis with respect to methodology. It will include ballot language description, will include funding source identification, and if millage drafting of appropriate language. Per our discussions and per the resolution, if indeed it turns out to be a millage, that millage will be, or rather in any event, that secure adequate funding for the purpose of any resultant litigation will be part of, will be tie guard to the acquisition initiation. Yes on the motion on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? The attorney evaluation.
Thank you. I have started the process with Ms. Sell for my evaluation. Just for your information, her firm was acquired by Yo and Yo, so she's no longer Amy Sell's talent management. She's working with Yo and Yo. And I've already seen a step up considerably. But I also shared with her your specific feedback that surveys should be for the designated group, and there should be individual follow-up, and there should be no cross-contamination of surveys, and she's mindful of that, and she will make that happen. She and I have prepared a schedule of events to happen after today. I think the key date for this committee is that you will receive her draft summary report and my responses by March 26th is the current planned time. And then at the April 8th meeting of this committee, I'm hoping to have a closed session and hopefully you send it to all council.
Here's a copy.
I certainly have copies of the.
I see them sitting there, that's why.
Yep. Okay. So that is the current plan. It starts with today, the timeline. And in your email inboxes, you have draft questions that you're not required to give me feedback, but if you certainly have feedback on draft questions, I would welcome it. And that's it.
By what time do you require those?
The survey goes live on the 18th, so sometime before that to incorporate them, that would be great.
Any questions on that?
That rate with the invoice be coming now from Yo and Yo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the contract itself is Yo and Yo, and the invoice is Yo and Yo.
Okay.
And it comes from my budget, that's right.
Is there a pricing adjustment?
I don't remember last year's pricing. This year's pricing is $1,250. I don't think last year it was much lower. It seems that par. For the profit.
My question would be about, I know we deviated from last year's, this year as well with the administrator, but, if there is a desire, would there be a closed session conversation with admin prior to the,
That is my plan.
okay,
I would like to have a closed session with the committee, and with all of council, but that is my plan.
okay. All right, I was just wondering, because I see it on there for the council one, but not on the 18th, and so I was just checking.
I assume that there'll be, by admin will receive, both staff and council members.
Yes.
Anything for that? City newsletter templates.
Okay. I will be fairly brief here, because I do think based on the feedback that I got from folks that we are 90% there. There are a couple of things that I think we still need to tweak. One is the election information section really doesn't need to be there in an off year. She did receive that feedback, and she kept it in, thinking that after all of the other tweaks that we still had room for it, so why not include it just in case? However, we do, there is a desire on my part and the part of others to expand the OSI section with regards to, I think, outlining more specifically what rebates are available. And then also to include information about the SBU. So I think with those two things, we really do need to get rid of that election information in the off year and make room for that information. So if anyone has, I know you're just seeing this now, so feel free to take some time to take a look at it over the next day or so. I'm going to be getting that feedback from Lisa. And if you need anything else, please feel free to send me along. Otherwise, with those changes, I think we should be good. Maybe is this a twice a year mailer potentially, or is it once a year? I can't remember where right. So I'm trying to remember where we were on. We get pricing that, and I think we could do twice a year. Yeah, and because we're including the mayor on. And, council members are together with the mayor. We do have room for 3 years. So the snow removal might be something that we might be reasonable as well. Yeah.
So on the sign up for emergency alerts, I think it's really good, especially with the snow ordinances. I'm not seeing it, like, I'm wondering if, maybe this is just a question for the designer, but like, if there were room for another QR code, like the whole city of Ann Arbor gov delivery, like emailing list that goes kind of across departments, I'm not necessarily seeing a link to that. And I'm wondering if that could also be included in that QR code, to sign up for alerts like emergency and the kind of standard city newsletter gov delivery page. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, just add it because I want people always.
Yeah,
How do I sign up for the newsletter, the city newsletter?
Yeah. Okay.
Otherwise, just, I know that the question on the start, the font, I guess for the council statement, or just how much room we'll have, I guess.
Yeah,
Just making sure that that's staying as legible as, I guess, or as our city standard is for normal
yeah,
publications.
yeah. No, it is, I do not have my glasses on and.
Yeah, well, there's a lot,
Right.
there's a lot of,
So the way this is laid out is assuming the two are going to share, that may not always be the case. There's a lot of white space here, that's wasted. And so I think regardless if people share or not, some sort of 2 or 3 column layout to give the opportunity to bump up the font and use more of that white space.
I'm assuming this is sample, but the text is the same currently. I'm assuming the mayor's text is envisioned to be different substantially than,
Yes.
okay.
That is like, the Union Arbor equivalent of Morrison.
Okay.
Or, yeah.
New business.
Handful of updates. We expect to bring closure to the ED director tonight. We're doing our all-day budget retreat tomorrow at Cobblestone. That's the administration's first big step to putting the budget together. CBRE will be on the 18th docket for the Klein lot in 415 as the city's broker. We're working with Senator Peters' office on the next round of congressionally directed funding. And one of the projects or potential projects we're talking through is the introduction of bollards into downtown. The way we close streets, needs an upgrade, and given all that's going on in the world, what we're doing now is not going to stop anything. Every intersection cannot take bollards because of either infrastructure underground or the way it's designed. So we've been in communication as a big group of folks, BDA and the downtown groups, police, fire, et cetera. We floated this to Senator Peters' office because in the current era, we things are not controversial at all. He said this passes that test. So we're trying to get prices and we'll see where it goes. Either way, we believe bollards is the solution for street closures. The budget will be presented to you on April 21st. And we are going to set up a work session for March 24th, which would let you hear from the service area administrators on that day. So a month in advance of you actually hearing the budget, you'll hear from the service areas on, what they ask for or whatever. No videos. We're out of the video business. And just FYI, while we're at Cobblestone, at some point tomorrow afternoon, huddle and compare the latest in what the weather forecasts are. So it's kind of doing this. The only way to do it is at a certain point, I've got to make a call. We're open or we're closed. You can't wait till the last minute. You got to do it in advance. I've already been in touch with the chief judge's office about the court. So at whatever point in time, if it's still projecting 8 inches in ice, I'm more likely to say we're closed than we're delayed in opening. Delayed in opening really doesn't solve anything. Because our workforce, comes to a variety of places, and putting them on the road and let us know that. That's a long decision to make. So we'll communicate communicate that out when we know it. And that's it for my items.
Understanding that, Senator Peters' office has a particular connection on the Homeland Security side, and that has a natural linkage with Ballard, I assume we're also looking at something like that.
Senator Peters' office reached out to us. The Dingell's office has not. So we're just responding to what his office asked us to give them. But we're, aside from just that conversation, we're working on a list of projects, period, for consideration potentially by either state or federal government. Not optimistic, but we gotta do our job. So,
To the extent that we could be clear on that.
from the moment.
Yeah.
One thing I just wanted to bring up that I learned from, or that I was mentioned at the Slotkin, local, representatives and engagement session, I guess. She said that one of the quickest, appropriations she'd seen move forward were always on fire and fire. And I know one of our asks for Peter's office, I think it has to do with our fire station. But if there were just fire equipment, I don't know if we have specific asks on that, but I know since we've had some of those requests come to council, if there's a request for specific like fire trucks and fire infrastructure at all.
We would certainly consider doing it. Part of what we have to work through, they want you to spend the money by a point certain when you get it. Well, if the fire truck's not ready for 4 years, are we paying them 4 years in advance for it? That's a little dicey. But we're looking.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the timelines I know have spread out. That's the chief said.
Or one comment, the March budget session, just FYI, that is during, kind of a public school spring break, so I know probably a few of us that have seen that attend. So,
You won't take it first.
very good. And then I assume that this could be our first test of our weather emergency education sort of process, and if there's encouraging folks to pull their cars off the street and all of that, if there's something in particular that you want us to help with communicating out to folks.
If it comes to that,
Okay,
they're all helping you.
okay.
One more item. This is very like service area specific, so I don't mean that. But I had a couple people notice that, and I know there's now a drop down on the city website saying, I think there was a problem basically with Google indexing our website. And do you have any just information about, was that kind of on Google's end? Like, was there some issue kind of more on Google's end or on ours, or is there any?
It's on Google's end because, and I'm the last person you want to ask a tech question to, but my understanding is this updating process happens in segments. And you're at the mercy of Google as to how fast it goes. So some people were experiencing difficulties with links while others were okay. Josh informed us we can't determine how long it will take. Days, months, but he said we're at the mercy of Google. So
I will observe if you used a non-Google search engine, it still works. So yeah, just for the public, I guess.
But it was like, if you searched within our website. It was
Well, that was because it's Google, because that is Google.
But there were other, oh, well, maybe that's why, I was gonna say there were other issues briefly. where like the press release that went out, the link didn't work in it, and things like that, so it wasn't just Google search for a while.
Anything else from the administrator? Ms. Clark, okay.
We have been very busy just trying to keep track of the executive orders and associated memos and resulting litigation that is ensuing. So it's keeping almost everybody in the team occupied in some fashion. We are not signing on to everything because at the end of the day, it takes resources to sign on to everything. So, but we are in touch with the Public Rights Project, the Savings Center. I am considering reaching out to certain municipalities that are like-minded within our state to see whether we can do some things collectively, but it's been a very active time for the team. But happy to report also energizing in a strange way. So we're all working together on that. For 2025, an improvement that I think I would like to bring to the office is making it more process-oriented. I'm coming up to 3 years at the city, and it has taken me this long to really learn and be comfortable. But I think I now understand how we work to be able to think about how we can better work. So I'm going to try to introduce some processes because we are very much reliant on individual institutional knowledge. And well, that's great because we have experts. It then hurts when those experts leave. So that's something that I'm prioritizing as a personal goal for 2025. Other than that, I don't have any updates unless you have questions.
A question around how much we are interfacing with the university around, is there any coordination in terms of that? Okay. The impact, I mean, the impact to our community to losing federal grants is profound, in particular because of the amount of federal funding that we get as a research institution.
I am not actively I just did speak with Mr. Kent this morning, because Councilmember I have suggested that I should reach out, and that was very fruitful. But I don't think I can say that I've actively reached out to the OGC to liaise. Perhaps it's just been an amazing, I haven't really had time, but we can do that.
Yeah, I'm just curious if there's any accounting. I mean, obviously this is just we're learning as we go, and we're not sure what everything is yet. But the financial impact of losing funds, being able to account for that in some sort of meaningful way to all of the different administrative orders. I know that the governor's office is trying to make, was reaching out to different places trying to make that, do that accounting for a statewide, but I don't know. I would be curious for us to be doing that at the city level at some point if we need to be able to communicate the full impact of this on our community beyond the human impact. There's also that too.
We're tracking grant funding that seems to be tied to it. Mm-hmm. But to your point, you get sort of a headline of what it says, but until you really get into it, you're not sure. So OSI has the most at stake, and they're at like $32 million. No one else comes anywhere close to that in the single service area. But we're trying to keep up with it. We're aware that the current focus seems to be going towards cities versus universities or other institutions. They're trying to get cities in line.
That's a concern on that. On the OSI front, our office has actually done a fair amount of work to look at the grants and see what cities they're in. because if they have signed contracts, then we have better positioning, I think, nothing with guarantee. So, or the OSI contract, which represents also the finances at risk, we have done that analysis, and that's coming in due for an unapproved case that we're going to be filing against the case.
And I know initially those executive orders suggested that they were going to impact formula funds as well as discretionary, and obviously that's been kind of pulled back over. And there's, it's unclear what exactly happened. It should not be able to impact formula funds, but at some point, understanding how this might impact our transportation dollars.
If it's in contention, it's still held. That's the problem. So, either way, we're stuck.
Are we engaging with the state attorney general's office at all, and whether or not they would be willing to step in on behalf of communities in filings? I mean, it seems as if, I think she announced today that they got a preliminary injunction against the funding freeze on universities. I don't know if she has a similar willingness to go to bat for cities, but it strikes me that maybe her resources could be used as well.
I was planning on doing, on reaching out based on the discussion that I had with Councilmember Briggs, so I was planning on reaching out.
Okay.
I'll let you know if that goes anywhere.
Councilmember Briggs, it's going to fire one of the questions. Where you have an example. One of the grants in particular that is marked for OSI would cover 6 of her staff. So that's the human impact.
Well, yeah. The internal capacity of principal servants, which I'm not sure there's community impact, and trying to figure out how to articulate this in ways that we can account for it in ways that are real, and accurate. I don't want to, I find myself pulling from random sources, which feel not as, some feel accurate, some feel questionable.
Will that, do you have signed contracts for that particular grant? And if you don't want to mention that.
Well, I'll just respond this way. The real issue is the 6 current staff that were to be paid from that source. So if they're not going to be paid from that source, then I've got to do the thing.
No, it sort of follows from what Travis was saying, but similarly, we have some partnerships with the county, human services partnership for one, but also some of the general services provided by OCED contract we also do through the housing commission. And I guess if either of the, if as Mr. Donnie was saying, like the focus of the Trump administration is in cities, I think also on the county level, because that's where a lot of these the funds, the grants are coming through, the HUD grants and everything else. So if there are city programs where, because of in partnership with the county, and then the county side of it is getting attacked or something like that, making sure that there's collaboration there. Because I think sometimes when I talk to counterparts of the county, they're not, like it seems like the lobbying might be a little different, or just in terms of how directly they're worried about the impact. I know, but OCD came out very quickly on the first federal funding freeze and said 2.5 million of their budget would just go away. That one I know that was rescinded, but that had that would also have a very big impact on the city because we get a lot of the services from them. So I don't know. I hope, I'm sure you guys have thought about that kind of collaboration, but I wanted to flag it.
assume this is bundled into information and upcoming business?
Yeah.
There is no more, there is distinction between information and upcoming business and updates, I guess, is the one which will lead to the last person. Having done with that, we get to public comment. There's no one in the house who would like to be in public comment. Is there anyone on the line who would like to speak in public comment? Moved by Briggs Watson, discussion, all in favor, opposed, adjourned.